Welcome to bbkarate.com, Vodcast, podcast, the new show that delves into the fundamental principles and techniques of karate as a martial art. Black belt karate is more than just a physical activity. It's a way of life that promotes self-improvement and personal growth.
At its core, black belt karate is about achieving a balance of mind, body, and spirit. It is a holistic approach to the martial arts that emphasizes not only the physical aspects of training, but also the mental and emotional ones. Through constant practice and discipline, black belt karate practitioners aim to develop their character, improve their self-confidence, and cultivate a sense of inner peace.
Our show will explore various aspects of black belt karate, including technique, mindset, and presence in the dojo. We will interview experienced instructors and practitioners who will share their insights and tips for developing a deeper understanding of the art. Our aim is to provide a comprehensive guide to black belt karate, from the basic movements to the more advanced techniques and concepts.
If you're interested in black belt karate and want to learn more and help support the show, please consider subscribing to the digital magazine at bbkarate.com. That's bbkarate.com. At the site, you can access our Vodcast and audio podcast, as well as a wealth of additional resources related to black belt karate. Thank you for joining us on this journey, and we look forward to exploring the essence of black belt karate with you. So remember, please tell a friend about us.
Today's show is all about exploring Masaji Taira Sensei's Renzoku Bunkai. So the first question is, what is Renzoku Bunkai and its significance in the martial arts? We can answer that by talking about what Bunkai is to begin with. Bunkai is the application of techniques that come out of the katas. In Renzoku Bunkai, it basically stated is continuous application. So once the bunkai starts, the move starts, it just continues and flows. So Jim, maybe you could give us a little bit on Renzoku Bunkai and its relevance in self-defense and the martial arts in general.
Sure, Sam. We have to date back before the Goju style was implanted and other styles were put in. We go back to an Okinawa that had the name of the style coincided with the name of the city or town it was taught in. Each one was different. Each one emphasized something different. When the Chinese influence was taken and applied to what the Okinawans had, that was the beginnings of Renzoku Bunkai. If you watch Chinese martial artists, they don't strike, stop, wait. They strike and continue, and both sides are at it until one side gets the advantage. That is the same thing that Masaji Taira Sensei has applied to what we do nowadays in the karate world. We used to do it just like the Chinese. We would go in, apply technique to an applied technique to an applied technique, and it was back and forth with both practitioners advancing in their knowledge and execution of what they do. Somewhere along the line, it got shortened. It was easier for people to remember or to pick up, but we got to the concept where, if you watch tournament competition, it's one and done. Well, that's not martial arts. Martial arts not one and done. Martial arts is once you start, you don't stop until the fight is over. So it's a misconception that we get. Masaji Sensei took and reapplied all of the training that he got from Miyazato, from the members of Jundokan and whatnot, and he put it back together in a methodology where you learn the style in a continuing basis, not a stop, go, stop, go. And that forces you to pay attention not only to what you do, but to what your opponent is attempting to do. And ultimately, you learn that as long as you're in control, all your opponent can do is try to counter what you're doing. And that's a great position to be in, because if you control the match, you control the outcome. And I think that is the whole thing about the martial arts, is taking control right from the start of the initial confrontation.
Okay, great. Nicely done, Jim. I want to back up a little bit, though, and just sort of introduce Taira Sensei. Taira Sensei continues to inspire martial artists around the world. His teaching of the powerful and versatile practice of Renzoku Bunkai is becoming renowned. He's an exceptional individual, and he was born in Okinawa in 1952. He's a leading teacher of Okinawan Goju-Ryu Karate Do. He's the head of the Okinawan Goju-Ryu Kenkyu Kai. His teacher was Aichi Miyazato, a student of Choga Miyagi and the founder of the Okinawan Jundokan Dojo. And Taira's karate is that of his teacher and of the Jundokan, with the addition of his novel approach to the applications or bunkais of the kata. Taira Sensei is best known as a researcher and practitioner of the bunkai of the Goju-Ryu kata. He is unusually open in his teachings, feeling that the techniques and learning must be shared for their preservation and to test their effectiveness. Most of Taira Sensei's karate career has revolved around his focus on the bunkai of the kata. He has painstakingly dissected the kata and trained his body to the point where he has mastered the inner workings of the Goju-Ryu kata. Taira Sensei's bunkai is unusual in his insistence on working the kata in sequence rather than picking individual techniques from the kata in isolation. He is also adamant that the kata do not need to be changed to perform the bunkai. So that's a little snapshot on Masaji Taira Sensei, and we can move on from there to maybe talk about understanding the bunkai, the Renzoku Bunkai. You want to take a shot at that, Jim?
Sure. In terms of bunkai, when we were coming up through the ranks, bunkai to us was a combination of this is a block, this is a strike. You learn to do the block and the strike. Then this was another block, this was another strike. And things were not totally put together so that they generated a pattern. There was a pattern to the moves, but not a pattern to the techniques as far as they're joining one another. Now, when you look at Renzoku Bunkai, the very thing that you see first is that it is a flowing application. It's not stop, go, it's not wait, what? It's continually flowing. Now, the significance of that is huge when it comes to self-defense. If I allow my opponent time to think about what they can do, I'm in trouble. But if I start off and I take command over what's happening, as long as I'm pressing the issue, my opponent's got to stop me, which means they're going to be defensively and trying to block. And the way Taira Sensei has taken it, he shows you right in the middle of what you're doing different techniques that are derivative from what you do. He shows you arm bars. He shows you how to trap hands. He shows you how to take a person off balance. He improves upon your physical balance, and he shows you that every move is worth it. You don't move inside without a purpose. So as you're moving inside, you learn to sweep a quarter, you learn to take the knee down, you learn to off balance your opponent, you learn to take the person down, you learn to interfere with their intentions. And all of this is going on as you are executing Renzoku Bunkai. As before, when we were doing Bunkai, we would block, we would punch, and then Sensei would say, okay, let's put it together. So you did a faster block and a more connected punch. But the whole kata did not flow together as one significant form. When you see and understand how Taira Sensei has put all of this together, one kata is a complete form start to finish. It begins, it goes through transitions, it takes you through implementing various things. You have to be self-reliant in order to make some other things work, but it helps you, the individual, develop yourself and build confidence in what you're able to do. And it's a wonderful feeling to get out there for the first time and actually be in control of what happens.
And I think it should be brought up, I guess, Jim, that both you and I attended a Renzoku Bunkai seminar this summer, and one of my takeaways was our original way of doing Bunkai prior to Renzoku Bunkai was like checkers, where the Renzoku Bunkai is on a whole different level, like chess.
Yes.
And many of the key concepts that have to be integrated and executed include the flow, as you mentioned, but also the timing and the rhythm. The whole combination of the flow, timing, and rhythm. And then, as you also mentioned, throwing in like a hiccup. You get a timing going, and then Taira Sensei would throw in an additional unexpected move into the Bunkai, and that's where he could establish total authority over the opponent. So that shows adaptability in like a combat situation, to be able to do what Taira Sensei is showing us and teaching us, is to be able to generate some adaptability along the way, so that while you're executing defense maneuvers, whether it be in the kata or on the street, you can adapt to what's happening and react to what's happening with an unexpected maneuver. There's also the relationship between Renzoku Bunkai and the economy of motion. It's one of the things that Taira Sensei had emphasized to us, even though he was not able to speak English, a very, very effective communicator.
Yes, he was.
So that economy of motion is a core part of Renzoku Bunkai. The moves are not wild, flailing moves. They're all centrist and focused directly at your target areas. Right in the title, Renzoku means continuous in Japanese. And I don't think you can overemphasize the continuous. I guess my best way of describing it would be, for the first time in my life, I haven't been to be able to do Renzoku Bunkai, you have to be doing both offense and defense exactly at the same time. Whereas prior to being exposed to Renzoku Bunkai, I would have a offensive frame of mind, switch to a defensive frame of mind, and that was an actual flaw, is the way I view it now. Because there's always a gap in time between switching from offense to defense, where if you're trained what Masaji Sensei is teaching us, Masaji Taira Sensei, be respectful, is teaching us, there is really no time gap between the offense and defense. They blend. So,
and that's true. You know, we used to say, Sam, back in the days of training, the end of the block is the start of the strike, or the end of one technique is the beginning of another. But the way we executed our kata, that could not possibly be true, because we had to stop one thing and then start another. In Renzoku Bunkai, you don't really stop the first thing you start. You alter what's happening in order to make the transition smoothly to the next thing. Mm-hmm. There are no gaps, no lags, and the more you train, the more you see, the more you see, the more you do. In Okinawa, when I was training there, we had a co-sensei kept telling us, continue, 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 continue. He never said, go stop, go stop, go stop. Continue. And then he says, you make it yours. And think about it. We have all these katas, and here is a 9th degree black belt telling us, make it yours. And when you make it yours, certain things have to apply. And one thing is, there are techniques that we are taught that I don't care how hard we practice, how many times we do it, it's not us. But there is an alternate to what we do that is us. And discovering that alternate is going to be through Renzoku Bunkai, not through block stop, punch stop, kick stop. So the flashiness is gone. You're not going to see Renzoku Bunkai where a guy jumps up, does a 360, kicks you upside the head, and then stands down and looks at you. No, 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 no. You might see it where he does a 360, sweeping your feet out from under you, placing his knee in your chest as you go down, and now he's on top and in control. So the philosophy is different. And when you really look at it, there are a lot of people who have disillusions about martial arts training. They hear so much about it, but what they hear, they don't see in the training classes. And that's a big disappointment for some people. Well, you're only going to see what is available. And honestly speaking, today's instructors work hard bringing techniques and understanding to the styles that they're teaching. And as a martial art, it's trending back towards the reality and a lot less towards the tournamentality that it has gotten to over the past 35 years.
So I have a video queued up of just a basic Renzoku Bunkai exercise with Taira Sensei. Should I show that, Jim?
You know, it would be a travesty of justice if you did not let them see Master Masaji working his miracles, because it's wonderful to see what happens.
So the Uka keeps his arms.
So this is a basic training exercise used to build timing, fluidity, and rhythm. It's a left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left exercise. And your partner is really only standing there holding his arms out to let you work off of. Again, similar to that Kung Fu training. So, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left, left, right, right, left.
Jim?
Sam, looking at the video, someone who is seeing this for the first time may be a little confused. And their confusion comes about from the fact that the emphasis is not on Sensei. The emphasis is not on Sensei telling you what to do. The emphasis is not on Sensei counting cadence so that you can do a move. The emphasis is on you discovering what to do with your own ability, how to set your own cadence, how to deliver the technique that's going to be most rewarding for you, and how not to allow the other person to get the advantage. That's a big, big step towards where the martial arts was and is. You're in control. I've often said, Sensei's not going to be there to count for you while you're in a confrontation. Sensei's not going to be there to tell you kick with this foot or knee with that knee or strike with this hand. But you are there, and if you don't understand what's happening, it's all over. So with this type of training, it's thinking without thinking. And I love that expression. It's thinking without thinking. We talk about muscle memory. Well, in the martial arts, we have three things we work: our mind, our body, and our spirit. The mind controls the muscles. The body is what we move back and forth to deliver the technique. But the importance of the spirit can never be left out, because it is the spirit that allows you to execute things the way they're supposed to be. I often use the example of a child. A child starts from birth, they go through all the preliminaries, and then that day when they get that pair of shoes, it's got to be tied. And mama and daddy sit there next to the child, trying to explain to that child how to tie those shoes. And for days, months, weeks, sometimes it might take a year before the child gets it. But once that child gets it, they develop it, they keep going with it, it gets better and it gets better. And I guarantee you, Sam, anybody listening to our podcast right now that has shoes they need to tie can tie their shoes while listening to the podcast and talking to somebody else. It's made to be you, and you put it into that part of you where you don't forget it, it's automatic. And that's what Taira Sensei's Bunkai does for the techniques within the style. It makes it automatic.
Okay, I want to show another video, and this time it's going to be a two-person exercise where Taira Sensei does a outside, 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 and then an inside switch. And let's just take a look. I'll fire that up. And so while he's doing this, it's outside, outside, inside. It's a very, it looks like a fairly simple thing to do, but I'm telling you, it's actually very hard to do this.
Looks are deceiving, Sam.
Yes. And this particular exercise where he's doing the kake, sticky hand, and then switching from the outside. He goes outside, setting a rhythm, setting a pace, and then this is where he throws that little monkey wrench into the works and establishes control, authority over the other person.
Yes.
So I'll turn that off now. That's a very interesting exercise. So,
you know, if anyone has the opportunity to attend a Taira Sensei clinic, you would be remiss if you did not attend it.
And that's not just for Goju people.
Right. It is a mastery of the ability to take what you know, the way you've been shown it, and then take it and adapt it personally to yourself so that it's functional for you. And that's the beauty to the martial arts. It's personal. I can't kick like you do, Sam. I can't punch like Taira Sensei punches. I can only kick like I kick, and I can only punch like I punch. But understanding the effectiveness of my particular kick and the effectiveness of my particular punch is what makes the difference between success and failure. If I think my punch is so strong, I'm going to break the Makawari every time I hit it, and I turn around and hit the Makawari and it smiles at me, looking at me like I'm crazy, I have a misconception. But with this type of training, there are no misconceptions. It either works or it doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, there's no loss there. Adapt it, adjust it so that it does work for you. And that's the importance. These things must work for you.
Now if you're working on Renzoku Bunkais, a big part of that is solo work, exercising your mind to imagine your opponent and what you're doing to your opponent. And if you don't do that solo work, you probably will have a really difficult time when it comes to doing it with a partner. But the solo work, it's like any other muscle memory. You drill it and drill it and drill it, and until it becomes a second nature. Then it's a tool that you can call upon whenever you're in a scenario where you need that tool. And if you get enough of these tools in your muscle memory, then you're going to be a better fighter for sure. And also partner practice. Coming along with a partner and doing it, it's absolutely essential that you train at some point with a partner. I mean, you can do solo training for, a long period of time, but at some point in time, you got to come together and test the techniques against each other and work with each other to help teach each other to do that. So, and there's a definite transition from solo practice to partner practice, and the development of your adaptability as you're doing the technique. You want to be able to throw that monkey wrench in, that hitch, get a rhythm flowing, like Taira Sensei was showing in that first video. Get a rhythm going, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, and then switch it up. Throw a monkey wrench into the rhythm that's not expected, and you will likely be able to score or be successful at defeating your opponent.
Higona Sensei, Mario Higona, who also is a product of the Junicorn Dojo over in Okinawa, he does clinics, and he does little snippets of Bunkai from kata. And what you see when he does his little snippet from the Bunkai is not go stop. It's always looking to continue. And even when he stops, you can see the opportunity to continue the flow with what he does. And I think that's very important for people to understand. When you have the opportunity to stop, you can stop. But don't give up the ability to continue. And that is the fault that so many practitioners run into. They decide, well, I've done all I can do, I'm done. No, you haven't done all you can do. When you've done all you can do, it's all over. But if it's not all over, you have not done all you can do. And if you look at the various styles that are around today, and you look at how they accomplish certain things, you can see the similarities in the style's abilities. Now you take the style's application of one technique and apply it to Taira Sensei's Bunkai, and you can see the closeness between style A and style B and style C. They call the kata by the same name. Guess what? The intention of the kata has got to be the same. The operation of the kata has got to be the same. What's different is the application of the technique based upon the style that the person has been studying. So when it comes down to it, this idea of Renzoku Bunkai is so big that you cannot really imagine what it will do for a practitioner.
You know, and that's a good point. It's really taken off around the world, especially places like Australia, France, and other countries around the world that are getting Taira Sensei to go and do clinics. But having the opportunity to do that makes you want to do it more. Those clinics are very addictive. Like going to one clinic, you come away from it going, I'm going to the next clinic. I'm going to go to the next clinic. It's just the way it grabs you. Like this stuff is so foundational. This continuous application is so foundational. You're almost scratching your head going, well, why didn't we think of this earlier or apply this earlier? And I guess the answer to that would be there wasn't a Taira Sensei around to show us what he has spent who knows how many years developing.
Yes.
He's an exceptional individual, and if you get a chance to meet him, by all means, don't pass it up.
No, do not. And you know what? It's typical. People will run into some of the master practitioners from Okinawa and they're awestruck. Here's a person that has done so much for so many. I'm afraid to even talk to him. Well, with Taira Sensei, you better take the exact opposite approach. He wants you to talk to him. He wants to show you what's better. He wants to help you improve. He is not selfish. He doesn't want to hold back on anything. He wants to give you as much as you can accept, because that's the way you get better. And getting better is what's important to him. I've never seen a man who is so fundamentally flawless with the execution of technique have so much fun doing it. I watched him upset a guy 3 times his size, and the poor guy didn't even realize he was going to the ground until after he was down. And Taira Sensei had this big grin on his face like, hee, I got you. And I'm like, wow. He did that without having to think about it, and the poor guy that got it done to him still doesn't know what happened to him. That is the beauty of being an executioner like Taira Sensei.
You know, and that shows up in a particular strand of his techniques that he was doing. He does it's not a grab, it's a hooking motion, like with the sticky hands, the kakie. and he can pull your arm and pull you off balance out of your stance without grabbing you. And actually, I have another video, if you don't mind, that'll should demonstrate that.
Control.
Right here, he pulls that arm, and he's not grabbing it. He's just using it as his wrist as a weapon. He's using his wrist as a weapon to pull that arm out of the way, or to draw him off balance. He's pulling backwards with his fist, closed fist in some cases.
Enough to get the person off balance. And
it's and the balance is destroyed.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to stop that and come back to our split screen. But I just thought I would share another example. A picture's worth 1,000 words, and a video is 1,000 pictures. So it's nice to have a little injection of what it is we're talking about here. So, I mean, you can talk about it for days and not present some of the ideas that you can see happen just in a few seconds on a video. So it's something new for us, I guess, and introduce a little bit of video into the broadcast. But, what do you think about the video, Jim?
Well, a picture is worth 1,000 words. We can sit here and talk about what Taira Sensei does. We can put all the pros out there, the nouns, the adjectives, and whatnot. One picture takes all of that and makes it reality. So I think the video is a great way to go. I think it is the one thing that you can take to heart and use to your advantage. I can talk about switching, and you were talking about inside and outside. It makes sense to me because I've seen it. But to Joe out there who's never seen Taira Sensei's Bunkai, inside, outside doesn't make any sense. Switching doesn't make any sense. That video helps.
Well, let's come back to a little bit, maybe some of the principles of Renzoku Bunkai. So one of the foundation principles is adaptation, adapting to changing situations. So the being adaptable and responsive is part of the Renzoku Bunkai. There's also an economy of motion and efficiency of the techniques. You'll see Taira Sensei doing stuff with his hands mostly in front of him. He's not, his arms are never very far from directly in front of him, his hands and his arms. It's extremely efficient in terms of his functions, and even some of his leg movements are really astounding. How he can put you down on the ground with his shin. Just by maneuvering his body into a specific situation compared to your body, and next thing you know, you're on the ground. So that's a good example of Renzoku Bunkai technique exploiting an opening or a weakness in an opponent. If you're not used to having your leg taken out from underneath you that way, it's going to be a rude awakening when you get hit with that. Another principal foundation concept is Zanshin, and I guess maybe an English translation of that was perfect finish, and the importance of Zanshin in execution of the Bunkais, and finally a holistic approach where you combine mental and physical principles to get to the end result. Like, it really is mind, body, and spirit when you're doing Renzoku Bunkai.
Yes, the emphasis for so long has been taking the physical attributes, molding them into the individual, and having the individual execute those physical attributes with some sort of discipline. Taira Bunkai is taking the discipline and molding physical attributes to the discipline, so that not only do you have something that works, you have something you control, something that is predictable, not haphazard, and something that is personal, not general. And when we think in terms of putting things together, the holistic approach is the only way you can interpret what's happening. We look at Zanshin, your mind, your body, and your spirit. All three must work in harmony in order for your effectiveness to take place. Any one of those three not working in harmony with the other two leads to failure. So what do we emphasize? As you observe Taira Sensei's Bunkai, he is using all three principles each and every time he works. Not sometimes, but each and every time.
And he makes it look easy.
Oh, doesn't he? And some of the moves he did is, I could have 20 years and not get straight.
Yeah.
He's fluid. That's the only way to put it. He is fluid. And you know, I want to take a minute here and speak in terms of Goju-Ryu. We've always been taught Goju-Ryu is not hard, not soft, but the expression is half hard, which means if it's half hard, it's half soft. That principle didn't make a whole lot of sense to people for a while. But when you look at Renzoku Bunkai, it makes every bit of sense imaginable. You don't have to be hard against a hard strike. You don't have to be soft against a soft strike. But you do have to be accurate with what you're doing. And you can't say, oh, this might not work, because by the time you get to might not, it's all over. You have to have confidence in what you do. And that confidence is greatly enhanced just by sitting, even just watching a video of Taira Sensei's technique.
Absolutely. I want to talk about the striking techniques in Renzoku Bunkai. Quite a few of the strikes that we learned in the clinic were strikes to the eyes, and in many cases, the strike to the eye was. I won't call it a feint, because if they hadn't blocked it, it would have been the end of the fight. But the strike to the eye is a way of continuing to control the other person, because you know they're going to put their hand up to protect their eyes. As soon as they put that hand up to protect the eyes, there's an opening.
Yes.
And in many cases, Taira Sensei would show us a kakie technique where he would attack the eyes, and at the same time, or just slightly afterwards, find an opening to attack.
Yes.
And that's just one example of the way that Taira Sensei teaches Renzoku Bunkai to look for openings or to create your own openings. I shouldn't even say look for openings, because in almost every case, it's a matter of you create the opening by what you're doing first.
Yes.
And if your first technique is effective, there's no need to continue.
That's
but
right.
if your first technique is blocked, the second one is already on the way. And if the second one is blocked, the third one is already on the way. And it just, that's what is meant by continuous application.
Yep.
It's 1 after 2, after 3, after 4, after 5, until you don't need to throw any more.
Yeah, it's that proverbial back him out the back door and dump him over the cliff. Oh, bye-bye.
Yeah.
You know, there is one thing that goes into kumite, and it's probably the most devastating thing that a kumite practitioner can go through, and that's fear. They're afraid. They get out there in the ring and they're going to be measuring their technique against somebody else, and they spend more time worried about getting hit and getting hurt than they do executing what it is they've learned to do and seeing if it works. A big adjustment to that came when Jun Rhee and his group came with the foam padded training gear. That was a big help. People were less traumatized by the techniques. But when you get down to it, Renzoku Bunkai, you can't use training aids. There's no room for them. It's the same as if you're out on the streets. You're not going to say, stop, wait a minute, let me open my bag, let me get my leg things out, my hand. It's not going to happen. It's going to be drop the bag and let's get to work. And the good thing about it is that working with the techniques that are derivative from Renzoku Bunkai not only shows you what to do and how to do it, but it implicitly allows you the ability to see the results of what's going to happen. The results. You were speaking in terms of a lot of strikes going to the eyes. Yes, if I'm worried about my eyes, I'm not worried about my knees, my legs, my head. I'm worried about my eyes. And some of the strikes that Taira Sensei incorporates into his bunkai look exactly like what is in the kata, but are not delivered to the same place that you would think it would be in the kata. And that is brilliant. I mean, you're used to a move and you say, okay, this move is a rising block and I like it. Well, it's not a rising block, it's a strike. And that strike is designed for a specific place, and if it's executed right, you can't stop it. And if you can't stop it, you might as well just say bye-bye because it's all over. That is the beauty in being able to take what is and extend it beyond what the initial is and broaden your perspective with using it. And I think that all I can say is it's brilliant. That's all I can say. It is brilliant.
Another really interesting and brilliant strategy of the Renzoku Bunkai is the extensive use of joint manipulations and locks. They're sprinkled throughout a lot of the Renzoku Bunkai.
Yes.
It really is a masterclass in joint usage and
yes,
locks. Also, throws and takedowns are very integral to the dynamic nature of Renzoku Bunkai.
Yes.
And I have one last video I want to throw up before we
How did I know you were going to have one more? Oh, I know. I'm clairvoyant. Okay, go ahead.
This is a bunkai from Seiyunchin.
I
He's
remember
pulling
wanting to
the other
learn
guy's
this
arm
kata.
with his fist.
Yeah. Such a beautiful kata and so devastating.
And just a karate snippet to make it a little bit more juicy for you.
Yes.
So switch back to the standard screen. But yeah, some of I guess it was another video where there's actually probably sci-fi, I think, where there's essentially a throw from cat stance, which you would never expect from Nikawashi Dachi. But anyway, so the throws and takedowns are integral to the Renzoku Bunkai.
Yes.
And we didn't get to witness too many of them, but ground techniques, obviously, in grappling are elements that would be near and dear to Renzoku Bunkai as well. Like if you end up on the ground with the other person, we didn't get to touch on that in the seminar that we were at, but I'm sure that there's more than what meets the eye there. So, Jim, would you want to say something about the versatility of these Renzoku Bunkai techniques?
You know what? When you talk about versatility, Sam, you talk in terms of what is this good for? And when you think about something and what it's good for, if it's only good for one thing, why have it? Why use it?
Right.
Because the situation where that one thing is going to be necessary might be 1 in 10,000 different situations. But when it comes to the actions, the motions, the timing, the direction that Bunkai takes in Taira's floor plan, it's all based on your ability to move and be able to adapt. And often we watch tournament play, you'll see a guy standing there jumping up and down, hands in front of him, whatnot, and one is trying to guess the timing of the other, and you see this explosion come off and this long reaching reverse punch reaching to the person, and he gets hit with it. Well, you got a long reverse punch, all I have to do is step back or step to the side, you can't hit me with it. But with Renzoku Bunkai, that punch is an entrance, it's not a conclusion, it's an entrance. And you're going to have to stop the punch, and while you're stopping that, I'm coming with a whole different host of things that are going to work off of that initial move. And that art in a lot of martial arts dojos has been lost. It's one and done. Well, it's never going to be one and done unless you're lucky enough to hit them upside the head and they pass out on you. Usually it takes more than one. And if you allow yourself the luxury, and I say luxury because the only way it becomes luxury is if you work on it. But you allow yourself the luxury of being able to take something, mold it to yourself, and then in turn be able to help someone else use the same basic principle and mold it to themselves, now you're furthering the style. But if you take something and you get it to work for yourself, and that's the only person it works for, you're not doing nothing for the style. You're doing only for yourself.
It's, it's astounding, but I guess in the immediate aftermath of going to my first Renzoku Bunkai clinic, I ended up coming away feeling everything's the same, but everything is different.
Yes.
All of the things that I learned about Goju-Ryu are still applicable and appropriate, but with this extra little chip of knowledge, it's just astounding. Okay, we're getting to that point where we're running out of time. I just want to do a quick sort of conclusion here, and I'll leave the best part for you, Jim. I'm just going to summarize a few of the key points here from the podcast. Masaji Taira Sensei has contributed tremendously to the martial arts. There's no doubt about that. I don't know if we can give him enough accolades, and hopefully he will be around for a very long time to continue showing us what he has spent so much of his life developing and building and sharing with people, not just Goju-Ryu people, with anybody that graces his door. So his contributions are just without, I'm just overwhelmed by what he has been able to accomplish with the Renzoku Bunkai. Now, the core principles of Renzoku Bunkai, let's just go back over them: adaptability, efficiency of motions, flow, awareness, rhythm, timing, all of these things brought in together. There's probably lots and lots more evolution for Renzoku Bunkai to happen, and I'm sure, I know it's true that Taira Sensei is not resting on his laurels. He is continually changing and developing. He's helping us all to explore the Renzoku Bunkai teachings and their principles in our own martial arts journey. And Jim, I think I'll leave it for you before we hit the actual thank yous. Closing thoughts on the legacy of Renzoku Bunkai in martial arts?
Well, let's go take a step back in time. And let's go back to when what we now call martial arts was in its infantile stage. It was being put together. People were observing. People were imitating, duplicating, trying to make use of this, make use of that. They observed animals, they observed birds, they observed other people, and they took everything that they got and evaluated it. Those things they felt valuable, they kept. Those things they didn't think were valuable, they set aside but never threw away. And as it developed, we got into a place where we had to learn to respect one another, because that's the only way what we were learning could be transferred. If there's no respect in the dojo, there is no transfer of any knowledge at all. And when it comes to the time when you're taking something and placing it in the real world, it's no longer an exercise, it's in the real world. The only way it works for you is if you believe in it. If you don't believe in it, I don't care how hard you try, it does not work. Belief comes in working what you do with someone else. Belief comes in testing what you do against a number of different people. Because each time you do a specific technique against another person, their reaction is not going to be the same as the first person's was. But your action and your defense have to be able to take care of no matter what their reaction is. And that means you learn the technique for yourself. Once you know it, nobody can take it from you, and nobody can stop you from using it. When we look at Bunkai, let's get rid of the word Bunkai. And let's substitute Bunkai for reality. It's not a game. It's real. I'm not training to get into the ring and spend time with an opponent that when the match is over, they go home and I go home. I'm not worried about that. You can have my money. I don't even need to get out there. But what I am concerned about is walking down the street and being accosted by someone who just won't say no. Now, I have certain responsibilities. The first thing is, more martial artists have been put in jail for defending themselves than anything else. Why? They say, well, you're lethal with your technique. Well, if I'm taught only lethal technique, that's all I can do. But if I'm taught that my technique can be as lethal as I need it to be, when I need it to be, then I'm in control. And I can avoid the crushing death kill, as people put it, at the end. I can just take the person's ability away from messing with me. Bunkai has to teach you that. I don't care how many times you practice kata without doing Bunkai. You can't develop that without a partner. It's impossible. So how important is Bunkai, especially Taira Sensei's Bunkai? It is the most critically important thing you can learn in the martial arts. But it's absolutely no use to you unless you can find an adequate person to work it with. That's what I see, Sam.
Thank you for that, Jim. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. We hope that you've enjoyed today's show. Please invite one friend to watch or listen to our show. Access to both the Vodcast and the podcast can be found under shows at bbkarate.com, our digital magazine. We hope you'll take the time to check out the magazine. There's a wealth of additional resources specifically tailored to the essence of black belt karate.
Yes.
And for next week's teaser, episode 6, the role of respect and etiquette in black belt karate training.
That sounds like a good one.
You want to take it home, Jim?
Well, I'd like to start by saying thank you to each one of you who are taking time from your busy day in order to watch and listen to what we're putting out. Please remember, we don't get paid for this. What we do is dig out information, and we try to keep it not only current, but meaningful to you. This episode where we were talking about Taira Sensei's Renzoku Bunkai is a very personal episode for both of us. We attended the clinic. We were mesmerized. I mean, I've been training over 50 years. Sam, you've been training over 50 years. You're an old man. But the time that we put into it, we've come across a lot of people. And I'm going to throw a name out there. Glenn Cunningham. Glenn Cunningham is one of the greatest martial artists ever to come out of the New York area. I forgive him because he's from New York, but that's okay. And his insight into this is amazing. His support of this is outstanding. And he is 100% behind the principles that are being taught. Now, I throw the name out there because he's a good martial artist. He has trained some of the best, trained with some of the best, and is highly respected even in this day and age. And we need to understand what happens, especially in the martial arts world today. You need to get an accurate, unbiased look at it. And I can assure you, you can't find much more accuracy and less bias in anything than you're going to get from the two of us on this podcast. Sam and I have been together for quite a while. We do not see eye to eye on a whole lot of things. And that's good, because his sight has helped me. I don't know if I've helped him.
And vice versa. Yeah, absolutely.
And by the time we get finished with something, we've looked at both sides of that scale, and all we want to do, the whole purpose behind this, is you. We want you to understand what's really going on. We want you, if you have a question, ask the question. If between the two of us we don't have the answer, no problem. I can assure you we know enough martial artists from here, there, and everywhere that we can answer your question. So pay attention to our magazine. Tell other people about what we're doing. You have a question you need answered, put it down. Sam will find the answer. Not me. Sam will find the answer. And we look forward to you being a part of our community. So don't forget us. You can reach us at bbkarate.com. Again, that's bbkarate.com. We hope you will invest in a subscription to our digital magazine because, hey, that trip to New Jersey cost both of us more money than neither one of us had to spend. The food was good, though. And we look to being there for you each and every week. So remember us, bbkarate.com. Sam?
Thank you for tuning in, and good night to all.